When I think back to all of the great actors that portrayed father figures on classic TV shows, this guy, Hugh Beaumont, is right there among the all-time greats. Ward Cleaver was a pretty darn cool dad, don't get me wrong, but you know what? Someone who was even cooler and definitely a whole lot more inspirational was the man who played him. So if you're watching this video, you probably already know about the 6 seasons that Hugh played Ward Cleaver on Leave It To Beaver. His portrayal of the family patriarch is nothing more than iconic. And while some of the things that he says and does on this show may seem a little bit corny these days, I submit to each of you that Ward Cleaver was nothing but textbook. This is how you be a dad. Clearly the man just wasn't acting. Beaumont was a father himself, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I think it's important to talk about how Beaumont was a deeply, deeply spiritual man. In fact, he graduated from USC in 1946 with a master's degree in theology. His plan was to become a minister, but while working toward that goal, he had also been pursuing his other passion. Yep, Hugh wanted to be an actor, just about as much as he wanted to be a man of God. So at some point, Hugh decided that he could do both. When given the opportunity, he would definitely preach. In fact, during breaks between jobs, Hugh and his family, wife Kathy and their 3 kids, would spend their time in Minnesota far away from the entertainment industry and all of the trappings that came along with it. Hugh absolutely loved the time away. It allowed him to focus on being a better man, a better husband to Kathy, and a better father to his kids. After Hugh landed the role on Leave It To Beaver, he felt that whenever he could get his family back to Minnesota, back to their simple life, it was a life that not only included the occasional sermon at the local Methodist chapel, but even more importantly, it allowed him to connect with his 3 children, Hunter, Christy, and Mark. On one occasion, Hugh was required to return to Hollywood as quickly as possible, and it was agreed that while he would fly, the rest of the family would drive back. Unfortunately, on that journey back from Minnesota to California, tragedy occurred. Hugh's mother-in-law was killed, and one of his sons was injured. Hugh was absolutely devastated. As filming for season 3 of Leave It To Beaver commenced, many cast members noticed a sadness to Hugh. Even young Jerry Mathers could tell that something was wrong. Hugh didn't have the same vigor. At times, he just seemed to be walking through the part. As you might guess, Hugh's strong spiritual beliefs and his feeling that there is a life after this one allowed him to pull through the very emotional ordeal. Hours were spent on his knees, pleading with a higher power for understanding, and perhaps even more importantly, a little bit of comfort. And over time, Beaumont was able to find the answers that he was looking for. He was able to once again become fully engaged as a father, fully engaged as a husband, and fully engaged in his role as Ward Cleaver, as an entertainer, so much so that he wrote TV scripts and even directed episodes of Leave It To Beaver. In fact, Beaumont directed the show's final episode, Family Scrapbook. And that's not to say that Hugh's life from that point on was perfect. He suffered a stroke in the early 70s that left him unable to act, and in 1974 his 33-year marriage to Kathy ended. Yep, life has a way of testing each one of us. It's full of hills and valleys. But Hugh knew the answer. One has to keep moving forward, one step at a time, one day at a time. Another quote from Hugh, and I absolutely love this one. It describes the humility of Mr. Beaumont perfectly. He believed that the God that he had studied all those years, the God that he had preached about, the God that he had been there to comfort him, well, he believed that that God didn't care much about Hugh Beaumont, the movie and TV star. He cared about Hugh Beaumont, the man, and even more specifically, what was in that man's heart. Hugh passed away in 1982 from a heart attack. He was with family, visiting his older son Hunter in Munich, Germany. When word got out about his death, the man was remembered by his family and friends not for his on-screen accomplishments, but rather for the overwhelmingly positive impact that he'd had on each one of them. And those feelings extended to his television family as well. Yep, they were right there mourning alongside his loved ones. Alright, one minor gripe. In a recent issue of TV Guide, that magazine ranked Ward Cleaver as number 28 in the 50 greatest TV dads of all time. Personally, I think that's a bit crazy when you look at some of the other fathers that were ranked ahead of him. But you know what? It really doesn't matter. Because the only thing that Hugh Beaumont would have ever cared about was how his actual children ranked him out. And I've got to believe that he is number one in their hearts. So that's it. One last picture. I wonder what kind of trouble the beaver has gotten into here. Probably had something to do with that darn Larry Mondello kid. He was always getting the beaver into all sorts of crazy shenanigans. Anyway, what do you think? Let me know in the comment section, and while you're at it, I would appreciate a thumbs up. And what the heck, why not subscribe to the channel? I talk about music, movies, and television, mostly from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.